Hey everyone, welcome to day 3 of our Datatypes. So in this video we will be looking at how we loop over an array or how we iterate over an array. So loop and iterate both are similar but not the same. Okay, I am creating a new file inside Datatypes folder and I am calling it as array-loop-iterate.js. Check the spellings of each of them. So I will take the same variable name called as players and I'm creating an array with opening and closing square brackets and assigning 4 strings to it: Sachin, Dhoni, Rahul, Virat. So I have an array with player names. So we know that array is ordered integer indexed collection of values. Not always I manually access each element in the array via its index. So we do not do that always. Now if I want to traverse or travel through this array from the beginning to the end, so the best way to do is via looping. Now to traverse through the array we have something called as for loop. Traverse through the array. The best way to do is via for loop. Now to traverse through the array we have something called as for loop that is available. So the way it works is, I'll start off by defining what is for loop. So if we start with for loop, there are 3 things that you need to remember. The first one is initialization, condition check, and the third one is increment or decrement. Don't worry about all this right now, so I'll just explain to you what each of them means. For now, just remember, like for loop there should be 3 parameters. The first one is initialization, the condition check, and then we have increment or decrement. So I'm starting off with for loop syntax first. So for this players array I'm creating a for loop, right? So what is the first one? Initialization, which means we have to initialize or we have to start with creating a variable called as I is nothing but index. So I'm creating a variable where I is equal to 0, I is less than players.length. This is condition check. Okay, and then we have I plus plus, increment or decrement. Here we are doing increment only, so it is called increment. Okay, I plus plus incrementation. Okay, so you'll see the meanings later, but for now this is a syntax for opening and closing square round brackets. Then we have initialization where I is equal to 0. Then we have condition check. Here the condition is whether I is less than players.length or not, and then we have I plus plus. Okay, and then we have opening and closing flower brackets. So this is the syntax of an array or of a for loop. And then now this is a syntax and we are traversing or looping over the players array. So this players list can be of 11 players or 100 players. Here there are 4 players, the length is 4, right? So the length can be 11 players or length can be 100 players or 1000 players, that doesn't matter, but the condition or this for loop syntax remains the same. So this players list can be of any number of players. My for loop will ensure that it traverses from value of 0th index. So that's why we have started from 0, I is equal to 0, and it traverses from, or it starts from 0th index and loops over the array until the index is less than players.length. So here the players.length is 4, right? So it will go up to 3. I is less than players.length. I is less than players.length means I is less than 3. So what is the index of 3 here? So what is the value at third index? 0, 1, 2, 3. 3 is Virat, right? So it will traverse up to 3. It will print all the values up to 3. So that's what this condition check means. So it will traverse through every element in the array and it is displayed. As you have seen previously, whenever you have for loop, first initialization, then the condition check. So the condition is for how many times the loop should happen. Here let's see the execution. So I is equal to 0, right? I is less than players.length. So for I is equal to 0, it starts with I is equal to 0 and the value of players of I or players of 0 is Sachin. So here 0 is less than 1. Okay, 0 is less than 1, which is true, and it prints Sachin. So I'm just doing console.log of players of I. I'm just explaining how the loop works. So first we are setting the value of I to 0. Okay, the value, what is the value at 0th index? It is such in. It will check whether 0 is less than players dot length or not. Players dot length is 3. Sorry, players dot length is 4. So 0 is less than 4, right? So it is printing whatever the value at 0th index. So it will print such in here, and then we have incrementation, and now the value of 0 becomes 1 here. And now what is the value at first index? The value is Dhoni. Now it will check for condition whether Dhoni or 1 is less than 4 or not. It is true, and then it will print Dhoni as well. Then it will go on to increment the same, and now the I value is 2. So what is the value at second index? The second index is Rahul. It will check for condition whether 2 is less than 4 or not, which is true, and it prints Rahul, and so on. And it will check for Virat as well. And after incrementing 2 to 3, now at third index the value is Virat. It will check for 3 is less than 4, so the condition is true. It will print Virat, and then it will go to 4. 4 is less than 4. Is 4 less than 4? The condition is false, right? 4 is equal to 4, right? But 4 is not less than 4, so it is not moving ahead, or it is not incrementing anything. So it is stopping with printing Sachin, Dhoni, Rahul and Virat. So this is how for loop works. Don't worry for now, just see the syntax and see the execution output part of it. We will see the details, or if you have any doubts when we connect in our live class. Okay, I know for loops is little bit confusing than other topics, but if you learn once, you will not regret learning it. And then I'm just saving this file and executing this piece of code. Node array loop iterate.js. So it is printing Sachin, Dhoni, Rahul and Virat. So you understood, right, how the looping is working? So first initialization, then the then the condition check. So the condition is for how many times the loop should happen here, and so this is how it works. I will go ahead and display the value of I as well for your convenience, or for understanding the topic better. So I'm just printing the value of I every time the loop runs. So if you see, for first time it is 0, for the second time it is 1, third time it is 2, and the fourth time it is 3. There is no fifth time, because for the condition value 4 becomes 4, right? So it does not satisfy the condition I is less than players dot length, hence it is stopping the looping. So this is how for loop works. So when we run this, we can see at 0 index we find Sachin, at first index we found Dhoni, second index we found Rahul, and third index we found Virat. So whenever we are working with loop, you always access each element in the array via its index. So there is another way of accessing an array, that is, now in this case we are in for loop, we are accessing each element via its index. But there is one more way of traversing or looping over an array, that is known as for each method. This is for loop. We have one more method called as for each method. So the syntax for iterating is slightly different, but the idea of the functionality is still the same. So this is the other way of accessing an array, that is, we can iterate over an array. So I will say, so see how it works. Again I'm taking players dot for each. So this is how for each method looks like, and it takes an anonymous function as as argument, and the syntax looks something like this, and it is printing that here I am declaring an argument called as player. Inside function I am passing an argument called as player as first argument to this, and I am just printing that player, console.log of player. So this is the syntax of for each method. So for each method is very popular, array methods for looping over an array, iterating over an array. So here we are not trying to access the index, so we are not working with the indexes. We don't want what is the index value, whether it is 0, 1, 2, 3, or we do not care about the length of the array as well. So this is slightly different, just observe it. So this is the syntax for this function. So each element in the array is passed. Here we have taken player, right? So each player is passed as an argument to this particular function and it is executed. So here the condition is to print the player, right? So as argument to the function as a first argument. Now this function gets called every time in the array. So this particular function is called for every time and every element within the array. For example, the first element in the array is Sachin. So Sachin gets called. I'm just running this piece of code, just check it. So the first, so it is entering, we are considering this player's function and we are applying for each method and the function is called. So here first argument is passed. First argument is player. So player, what is the value? Sachin. Sachin is passed. Sachin is printed here. And then we have, it will loop again. So second argument is Dhoni. Dhoni is passed and Dhoni is printed. Rahul is passed, Rahul is printed. Virat is passed, Virat is printed. So this is how for each method works. So the values, all these values, Sachin, Dhoni, Virat and Rahul are passed onto this particular function via this player argument. Okay, I will save the file. When I run this piece of code, you can see that the first output is part of for loop. So this part is for loop and this part is for each method. Okay, you know the differences, right? So this function here is an anonymous function, so it does not have any name. So you have to observe it. It is an anonymous function. It does not have any, we are not naming this function, so it is called as anonymous function. So we are not naming anything for it. That function is get called for every single element in the array. So there are a couple of things that you need to observe very closely. While you are working with loops, we are able to access each element in the array via its index. We are trying to access every single element within the array via its index. So players of I is what calling every element. Here whatever the value of I is, that is going to be the index of the element. So and from that index we are extracting the value here. But whenever you are using for each method, which is an iterator, we don't have to worry about the index, or we don't work at index level. So we don't care what is the index, whether it is 0, 1, 2, 3, we don't care about that. So it will take care, for each method will inbuiltly take care about all those indexing levels, and it will also take care of initialization, condition check and increment or decrement as well. So we don't have to worry about all these three things here in for each method. Hence it is very popular. We just call out this method and we will pass a function which is anonymous function, and we will take the argument. What is the argument? Each element in the array is passed as argument. Here the plural is players, right? Hence we have given this player name. You can name it as anything, ELE something, you can name anything is fine, or anything you can name it, but we just follow the singular things. Since it is players, we use player. If it is like cars, we use car. If it is like aeroplanes, we use aeroplane. So we use just singular form of the particular array. So this is how for each method works. So you will also need to keep in mind that while I was looping, the three things that I have taken care is initialization, condition check and incrementation. But while I am iterating through to that array, I need not to worry about those three things, because for each method will inbuilt take care of them for us. So observe the syntax of both the types very closely. So but the two most commonly used ones, so these are the two most commonly used ones, is for loop and for each method. You either loop over the array or iterate over the array. So this is what the file name means, array loop iterate.js. So this is the concept for now. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.